Joshua, how you doing?
Great. Happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Happy, yeah. I love, so this was actually like one of the highlights of my week. And I know everyone, too. It's like the favorite part of their week.
Studying Torah and listening to commentary on Torah.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Best part of the week.
Drashing.
Yes. Midrashing?
Yeah, mid-drashing.
Commentary?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Well, what's that?
Oh, I was just saying we're going to talk about that some more, but yeah.
Excellent. Today we're going to be going over the Torah portion known as Mishpatim, which is Exodus 21 through 24. And remember that we are here to follow Yeshua.
Amen.
So keep that in mind. In 3rd Nephi, Yeshua says, I am the end of the law. The law is the means to the end of Yeshua, the spirit and letter of the law. And we'll get into that. So,
But the law reveals God's... Well, the law reveals God's mind to us.
Amen.
It reveals his mind and his heart to us. Through the law, we know what is important to him and what he thinks about and what he's concerned with.
And we'll cover this, there are many layers to applying and interpreting the law that are valid. And Joseph Smith was very much interested in the mystical, how to encounter God in this life. And there is very much, the entire law can help us do that. I mean, so the law, it's more than just these black and white, boring commandments and things like that. The law is really amazing. And by learning the law and learning to apply the law, you become more like Yeshua. You learn how to encounter God more.
Amen.
And the doctrine of Christ is on every page.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And the portion name is Mishpatim.
Yes. And what does Mishpatim mean?
Judgments.
Yes, that's right. Judgments. So, throughout the scriptures, this is the Bible, the Book of Mormon as well. Sometimes the commandments are categorized in different ways. There's several different, but one of the most common ones is judgments. And oftentimes that's paired with statutes. Keep my statutes and my judgments. And
in the
my
Book of Mormon, too.
Commandments. Yeah, absolutely.
Oftentimes in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. So, judgments are...
Real quick, can you just briefly enumerate the other...
Yeah, the other, categories.
The other categories of Torah, of commandments.
Yeah. Sometimes it just says my laws, my commandments. Mm-hmm. Those are, quite general. Yeah. And then there are the judgments, the statutes, the ordinances. And decrees. The testimonies.
And the sayings. Does that pretty much cover it?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good list.
And laws, that's what Torah means, law. Another translation of laws is instructions, too.
Right.
So, again, laws are instructions, commandments, judgments, decrees, statutes, sayings, ordinances, and
testimonies.
Yep. Okay.
So, a lot of these terms are kind of broad. Judgments, though, can be, and there's overlap between them, but judgments, in my mind, when I think of judgments, I basically think of things that have some sort of logical basis to them. These are the kind of commandments that you might, that a secular judge might determine, without even input necessarily from the scriptures, or they would come up with something similar to it. Something like someone destroyed their neighbor's property, so they should restore that. And maybe even restore it plus some, because of the hassle and the lost time and the grief. Yeah. So this would be, and we're actually going to see laws like that in this Torah portion.
Judgments seem highly related to natural law and natural rights.
I would say so.
Those laws that are inherent in the human condition or in just life itself. I mean,
yeah. A lot of, I would say, judgments have to do with justice.
Justice.
What we would normally think of as justice, anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and in the Book of Mormon, when the Nephites have their Zionic society, like one of the hallmarks of this society is that every man dealt justly with one another, and these judgments, the Mishpatim, are like blueprints for how to treat your fellow man with justice, and justice is really loving your fellow man, right? It's a lot of these, I would say, a lot of these commandments definitely fall under the Jesus mentions the 2 great commandments when he's asked to pick 2 out of the Torah. And one of the ones that he picks is from Leviticus, which is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And underneath that category fall a lot.
Hang the law and the prophets.
Yes, he says hang.
On these 2 commandments, love thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Right. The entire law hangs on those 2 commandments.
Yeah, and it's the amazing thing about the law is, yes, you can kind of separate it somewhat, but in reality, a lot of these things actually hang, like there's just crossover.
It's like a web.
It's a web, yeah, and I mean,
it's a tapestry.
The scriptures say that, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, and the scriptures in other places just say, like God says, if you love me, keep my commandments, yeah. But he also says, if you've done it unto your brethren, you've done it unto me. So anything that you do to serve your fellow man, you are actually like loving and serving our Creator, our Father.
Which is great, and that implies logically that the opposite is also true.
Yeah, correct.
If you have done injustice to your fellow man, which is sin, you've done it to our Savior, Yeshua.
Yeah, right.
And that gives me pause for reflection,
right,
on my own life.
Right. Yeah. I think it was Tyndall, the famous Bible translator.
The martyr.
The martyr, right? Yeah. He was
Saint
Tyndall.
Saint Tyndall.
That. He said I think he threatened that when he was done, he would make it so that the plowboy would know more about the scriptures than the priests. This is a paraphrase.
He translated the scriptures into English from Greek and Hebrew. That's his claim to fame.
Yeah. And
he was martyred for it.
Right. But anyway, he wrote a famous pamphlet book called, or it was in one of his books. I'm sorry, I'm a little foggy on the details, but basically he presented this concept as love your neighbor, love your neighbor's dog.
I love that.
And it's like, if you love your neighbor, then that gives you a reason to love even his animals, and his your neighbor's dog might be annoying, it barks at the nighttime or barks at you when you're coming home, poops on your lawn or whatever, but you don't shoot your neighbor's dog, even though it's incredibly annoying, because for the sake of your neighbor who you love, right? And this principle can be applied to your neighbor as well. Love God, love His children, right? Because they are like an extension of Him. And if you, in the new, the epistles of John talk about this ad nauseum almost. Like if you hate your neighbor, or if you say you love God but hate your neighbor, you don't love God, right? So yeah, these things are all intertwined. So going back to the categories, so this is judgment. Statutes, these are things that are like God's decrees that maybe don't make sense necessarily. It's something that we wouldn't have come up with on our own. So
they're commandments without an explanation.
Yeah. Sometimes they might have an explanation, but it's still maybe not something that you would have just come up with.
It's not like it's not a logical deduction related to natural rights and common sense justice.
Right. So one of those things might be don't eat shrimp.
Dang it.
You know why? You know that's they're delicious, right?
I miss jumbo shrimp.
Don't eat pigs. Okay, so a lot of the dietary laws and maybe some of the like other kind of purity laws there too are they're things that are not necessarily. A lot of the judgments are commandments that you kind of find like across religions and across cultures, but the statutes are things that are like unique to Israel. And the testimonies as well. Testimonies are commandments that God gives us to remember a certain thing. So, the Sabbath, for example. In 6 days I created the heaven and earth, and the seventh I rested and hallowed it. Therefore, you shall like remember and hallow the seventh day as well. Or to observe the Passover. To remember what was done, you know, when we were freed from Egypt. Again, these are very specific things to Israel. So, I think this, you know, up until this point, a lot of what we've gone through in Genesis and Exodus has been narrative things, and it's all very interesting and exciting,
Amazing,
cool. Yeah, these make good children's storybooks. You know,
they certainly do,
and we make children's storybooks out of these things because
my kids love these stories.
Yeah, I love these stories.
Me too.
Yeah, and they set the stage, but they set the stage actually for the commandments. Actually, it's interesting in the last Torah portion. God actually reminds the Israelites about a story in order to assert his authority for giving them commandments. He says, if you remember, right at the beginning of Exodus 20, he says, I am Yahovah thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Therefore, you'll have no other gods before me. You'll not have idols. You'll not bow down to them. You'll not take the name of the God in vain. You'll remember the Sabbath day. And he just rolls right into the commandments after reminding them about this story that led up to. And he could have also said many of the other things that we read. You know, I am the God who created the heavens and earth. Therefore, I'm the God who chose your father Abraham, and chose you to be my people, and have watched over you, and so on. Therefore, keep my commandments. And so, you know, all that we kind of read there in Genesis and Exodus is actually leading up to receiving the law and these commandments.
This is about the everlasting covenant to which we Latter-day Saints are grateful recipients. And covenants have terms.
Yeah, that's right.
So the law, the instruction portions of Torah are the terms of the covenant. This is how we maintain covenant faithfulness. Everything up to this point has been like what I call the legacy of the covenant. It begins with Adam, handed down Adam to Seth, to Enoch, to Noah, to Shem, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and now the Israelites, Moses and the Israelites. So we've seen how this everlasting covenant has been passed down and restored through the ages, and now we're getting the terms of the covenant.
That's right. Yeah, I like that.
And this is how we turn our hearts to our fathers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this I feel like this is the spot in the Old Testament though where a lot of people get kind of lost, because it's like we've inherited lies, as Jeremiah says, and we have been told that these things no longer apply, and it's actually kind of some of it. It's kind of laughable. We'll mention some of it, but I will just give a warning, I guess, to people who might be in that category, that camp, or who maybe have been taught to be in that camp. I'll say if you reject the Scripture, you will not have the Spirit to interpret the Scripture.
Good point.
That is 100%. I guarantee that. So with that, there is a traditional mnemonic for interpretation of scriptures and like kind of the different levels or layers.
All relevant, all valid.
Yeah, right. And it's an acronym. The acronym is the Hebrew word Pardes, which kind of sounds Spanish actually. Pardes.
It does mean it
Pardes, but Pardes means paradise. So, but in Hebrew we spell that with 4 letters, and basically it's a P, R, D, and S. So and these stand for the different levels of interpretation. The first one,
It's an acronym, sort of.
an acronym. Yeah, what did I say?
Mnemonic, but
Mnemonic acronym. Yeah,
it's a
an acronym.
PRDS, Pardes.
yeah. So P is for Peshat, which means surface, or like the literal, plain meaning. And this is the foundation that everything has to be built on. Like any of the other layers of interpretation cannot contradict the plain meaning, or the literal meaning. And the literal meaning is good, even though it's it's not as advanced. It is still the foundation.
It should mastering this surface, this first layer, this foundation layer, should be our biggest priority.
Yeah, and Nephi says he delights in
Plainness.
This is Peshat.
So, like, an example would be, and Nephi went up to Jerusalem. Plain reading. He went up. He literally
Geographical meaning.
He traveled to Jerusalem.
Right.
Now, there's actually more. There's actually more depth to that one little statement that we could go into. Believe it or not, has to do with going up. There's some temple connotation there, but again, plain meaning. He literally traveled to Jerusalem.
Yeah,
Plain and simple.
So I will say this is the actually, and it's interesting. Many people, modern day Christians who have inherited lies, they will actually, like Nephi says, I love plainness, but modern people will reject plainness.
Oh, and he
Right?
actually
They say
laments.
we actually don't. We reject the plain meaning of those scriptures. Actually, when God says you shall keep the Passover forever, they just we want to like spiritualize that or something. Like it doesn't actually mean what it says. We don't actually do that, or whatever. These things don't apply to us. That is rejecting the plain meaning of these things. So, okay.
So Peshat,
Peshat.
the first level of interpretation.
That's right. The next one is remez, which means hints. So this is like kind of a deeper, maybe an allegorical meaning to the scriptures. Then we have drash, which means to inquire or ask questions, and drash are like meanings that aren't present in a single text, but it's they're things that you can discover by looking at similarly worded texts, over many instances, and tying together different things. Bless you.
Thank you.
To come up with new meanings that can be derived.
So this is related to doing word studies.
Yes.
Going to, like you said, a bunch of other instances in Scripture that have the same wording, and sort of tracing a broader meaning, or building a broader understanding based on the context of all those verses.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then we have sod. Sod, which means the secret, or the esoteric, and peshat, remez, and drash. These are things that can be taught and studied
And commentated on.
Yeah, but sod are the mysteries. Sod are the things that you only receive by revelation or by initiation.
Yeah, initiate. I like how you said that, because sod also means counsel, as in divine counsel, God's inner circle. So you obtain a sod level of understanding of Scripture by actually encountering God, or God revealing Himself to you, right?
Yeah, right.
Humans cannot convey the sod level, is the point.
Right. Okay, so let me just give you just a couple of examples.
Oh, cool.
Just to show that this, like these, like interpreting scriptures in multiple levels is something that God approves of.
Cool.
Okay, so one is in 1 Corinthians. There are many, many examples of this, okay? But 1 Corinthians chapter 9, the Apostle Paul, he's talking about, he is an apostle. He and Barnabas, like they're missionaries, and they're out among the people doing missionary work. But Paul and Barnabas, they actually worked to support themselves while they were missionaries. But Paul actually says they didn't have to do that. Like as apostles, and like as priests, like in the we haven't gotten there yet really, but in the Torah, like the priests are supported by at least when they're acting in their capacity as priests, and you know they're keeping the temple running and teaching the people, and you know, being in the Levites had choirs and orchestras. You know, they would play music for the worshipers and things. So when they're acting as priests, they actually receive some of the offerings of the people for their support and the support of their families. And Paul is actually saying we are entitled to this as well as priests in the new covenant assembly. And so he begins in chapter 9 talking about that. But in verse 8 he said, "Say I these things as a man?" Like in other words, it's not just me saying this, but the law says the same thing also. So this is wild. This is Paul like quoting from the law, which was supposedly done away, right? But he's actually justifying. He says the law actually says this, and he says, "For it is written in the law of Moses, thou shalt not muzzle the mouth of the ox that treadeth out the corn," which is a commandment. Let's see, where is that? That's in Deuteronomy 25, verse 4. So when you have an ox treading out the corn, so going along, and you know the ox is pulling the cart or whatever, and you're harvesting, you're not supposed to muzzle the ox. Like let him like eat some of it like as you go along, because God cares about how you treat your animals. And he's saying, so Paul is actually using this law related to animal husbandry, and looking at the remez, basically like the allegorical meaning.
Yeah, he's applying it as a metaphor
to
him
like
and Barnabas.
Yeah, who were laborers in the field, and that they have a right to some of the
gleanings.
The product of their labor, which is these people and their offerings that they're bringing. So,
and that is an example of the second level interpretation, remets.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, one other one is from modern day Revelation, latter day Revelation, Doctrine and Covenants 29. This is a great one. This is a little more general, though Paul's was a little more specific there. But this is just the principle of the thing. Doctrine and Covenants 29, starting at verse 34. "Wherefore verily I say unto you that all things unto me are spiritual, and not at any time have I given unto you a law which was temporal. Neither any man, nor the children of men, neither Adam your father whom I created." So like from the days of Adam to Joseph Smith, God says, I have never given you a temporal commandment. Or at least you might say a merely temporal commandment. Okay. "Behold, I gave unto him, that he should be an agent unto himself, and I gave unto him commandment, but no temporal commandment gave I unto him, for my commandments are spiritual, They are not natural, nor temporal, neither carnal, nor sensual. Okay, so every commandment that has been given is spiritual and has like a spiritual meaning and spiritual ramifications. And this goes to kind of what we have said before. Like these things, even these seemingly kind of mundane like lists of laws like that are in this Torah portion, the Mishpatim, the judgments, it just seems tedious and meaningless, and some of this seems very far removed. Like this is like agricultural things, talking about your ox and your sheep, and talking about slavery and like things that don't apply to us, or we think that they don't apply to us. But in fact, God said every commandment is actually spiritual, and these things, they actually all have spiritual meanings for us, and they also point us towards Yeshua. And and if we can't see that, then we are like the Jews in Jesus' day. Blind, yes.
Blind.
So we do not want to be blind. And if you are the kind of person who doesn't understand these or why they're important, or you don't, then you don't, or maybe you don't believe that God says all my commandments are spiritual, then if you don't understand and you can't figure it out, it might be because you have rejected these things. And if you reject them, you will not have the Spirit to understand them.
And you'll just dismiss them as ridiculous or outdated or archaic.
Right.
But these are very serious. These are very deep. Every single commandment here, every piece of instruction in the Torah is beautiful and rich, and the Lord loves it.
Right.
And Nephi supports this sort of Pardes concept. He specifically talks about the second and third of the four levels, the Remetz and Darash. And do you mind if I read a quick verse?
Yeah, please.
1 Nephi 19:23. And I did read many things unto them which were written in the books of Moses, which we're reading right now. But that I might more fully persuade them to believe in the Lord their Redeemer, I did read unto them that which is written by the prophet Isaiah. For I did liken all scriptures unto us, that it might be for our profit and learning. And that specifically applies to Remetz and Darash. But Nephi was Nephi was huge into the mystical elements as well. He had his own encounters with God, so Nephi supports this.
Yeah.
Likening these scriptures for our profit and learning, unto us for our profit and learning.
That is exactly right. Likening, and he does that. There's all kinds of things that Isaiah says that he just, what's the word? It just hijacks for his own use. Yeah, and we're intended to do that as well.
Yep.
So
that's from
that's beautiful.
New Testament, Book of Mormon, and D&C.
Commandeers, that's the word I was looking for.
Commandeers.
He commandeers these verses in Isaiah
to his own people.
To his own people, yeah.
In this, so we have support for this in D&C, Book of Mormon, and New Testament.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we should take it seriously. We should not dismiss these instructions.
Amen. Okay, I want to address one more thing before we actually get into the Torah portion. The Torah portion starts off with some... we'll get there. But I want to talk about the one of the reasons why people reject things is they say, it's the spirit versus the letter. Mm-hmm. The letter kills, but the spirit gives life. And a lot of times when people say, I keep the spirit of the law, or we're supposed to keep the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, what they actually mean is we want to use this spirit, some kind of spirit, as an excuse to ignore the letter or disregard the letter. When in fact, the spirit of the law actually inspires you to do more than the letter, not less than the letter. So in here, we're going to read the letter of the law, mentions oxen. But the spirit of the law says oxen and sheep and your dog, and and the spirit of the law actually expands the meaning of the letter not reduces it.
It's not a replacement.
Nor is it a replacement.
It's an expansion, not a replacement, just like you elucidated.
Yes, exactly. Right. So anytime you say, I follow the spirit of the law rather than the letter, and you use it as an excuse to do less, you're being deceived. That is not what the Spirit is talking about. That's not the Spirit that the New Testament authors are talking about. They're talking about a spirit that actually... the spirit of the law is the meaning of the law. And like the Sermon on the Mount, Yeshua, he elucidates the spirit without undermining the letter. He actually requires more. A lot of times people think that Jesus like does away with the law on the sermon, with the Sermon on the Mount. He says, it says don't murder, but I say don't hate your brother. And it's like that's like a higher standard. But in reality, the law given to Moses actually says both of those things. So Yeshua's not like doing away with anything. He's actually just reminding us that that the law is, that God gave the law to show us his heart, and hopefully so that we can like conform our hearts to his, so that we can have his image like stamped on our inward parts. We have the law written in our hearts. Okay, but the law is concerned with we read last week, yes, don't commit adultery, but also don't lust after your neighbor's wife. That's the 10th commandment. And in the Sermon on the Mount, Yeshua brings this up again. He says, you've heard it said, don't commit adultery. I say whoever looks on a woman, someone else's wife, with lust is committing adultery in the heart. Now that's not something that the earthly courts, the judges, can see. Okay? But, and that, anyway, we see this in the New Testament. Jesus actually, rebukes some of the Jewish leadership because of their traditions, which have like taken the law and like very, very narrowly interpreted it, and then they'll say we're keeping this like specific thing, and it like exempts us from other things. And his response is, if it's a totally man-made thing, he says this is foolishness. And if it's a narrow thing, he says you should do that and do this. Right? You tithe mint and anise, spices, but you neglect the weightier matters, the things that maybe are not like you've tried to find loopholes. But the Spirit actually doesn't find loopholes. The Spirit actually expands the meaning of the law, not narrows it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So you have some things you want to say about wisdom, I think, that kind of mesh into this a little bit, at least. Yeah, a little bit.
One way we should be reading Torah out of many is as wisdom literature. We should be approaching Torah as wisdom literature. Wisdom is that which produces order. And order is that which is best for society. Order isn't rigid tyranny, it is Zion. It is the ultimate well-being and flourishing and joy and love that you can imagine. That is order. It's perfection. So again, wisdom is that which produces order. Wisdom, when somebody is wise, they are just. And when they are just, they produce and maintain order. So Torah is supposed to cultivate wisdom within all the people, and especially the elders and judges and prophets, priests, and kings. So are you a priest or priestess and a king or queen? Are you a prophet? Moses says he wishes that the entire nation of Israel were prophets. And there's another place in Scripture that says, Israel is called to be a nation of priests.
That's right.
That's
not
what
a nation with priests.
Not a nation with priests, a nation of priests. You, listener, are destined to be a priest or priestess, a king or queen, and a prophet or prophetess. That is your calling. And so you need wisdom. Wisdom is integral for those roles that you were destined to play. And Torah is how we obtain wisdom. Torah is the foundation of all other scripture. All other scripture is pointing back to Torah. The prophets, the writings, the New Testament, Book of Mormon, D&C, the spiritual and temporal principles, which, again, there is no distinction in the Lord's mind between those two. But for the sake of conversation, the spiritual and temporal principles in Torah are intended to produce wisdom, which will enable you to help usher in Zion, total happiness, heaven on earth. So please keep that in mind when we read this. This is really important stuff, and it's not a light thing to dismiss this as nothing or as archaic.
Okay, love that. Okay, now the Torah portion starts off talking about slavery.
Cool.
Right.
Icky.
Yeah, which is an uncomfortable topic.
Yeah.
And also one which comes with a lot of cultural baggage.
Oh, yeah.
And that cultural baggage is actually a huge hindrance to our proper understanding of what the scriptures are referring to.
Yeah, it's easy to engage in presentism.
Right.
Where you're retrojecting modern values back onto past societies.
And not even modern values, but modern or relatively modern definitions of things.
Yeah. Worldviews.
Is that the same? Yeah, or like events, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, I'm talking about, slave. The relatively recent practice of transatlantic, the transatlantic slave trade that was carried on in a lot of the Western world, and of course in America, famously in the colonies, and then later on the early United States, and the Civil Wars tied up in all that, and we are just still, as a nation, like feeling, and the world, feeling a lot of repercussions from that. There have been a lot of repercussions. Yeah. And it's interesting, the Western world, like in the U.S., slavery, even now, generations, we're separated from it by many generations. I don't know how many. More than a century, right? But it's still something that we're talking about, and people feel guilty over, and so on. Whereas in other parts of the world, in Islamic countries, there was even more slavery that had happened, but they don't have that problem. But you know why that mostly is all the slaves, all the male slaves that were brought to Islamic countries were just castrated.
Ooh.
So there's no descendants to complain about the treatment of their ancestors.
That's rough.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I do want to I want to talk about slavery before we get into the Torah portion. Talk about slavery a little bit, and like the differences between Torah slavery and
transatlantic
and colonial slavery, transatlantic slavery that we think of, and that we're more familiar with. So in our own scriptures, in the Doctrine and Covenants section, Doctrine and Covenants has a couple of things about slavery. And we have kind of actually two almost contrasting views of it, I guess. In Doctrine and Covenants 101, verse 79, it says, we believe that it's not right for men to be in bondage. Actually, I should just read that. Section 101, verse 79. Okay. Actually, before this is talking about the Constitution and how the Constitution was established and so that everyone can have their agency and so on. Verse 79, therefore it is not right that any man should be in bondage one to another. So we have to remember that when the Doctrine and Covenants here is talking about men being in bondage one to another, it is talking about the American variety of bondage, slavery, what was being practiced then. Okay. Section 134 again has something about this. But Section 134 has kind of it's kind of tolerant, I guess. It says, we believe that it's just to preach the gospel to the nations of the earth and warn the righteous to save themselves from the corruption of the world, but we do not believe it is right to interfere with bondservants, neither preach the gospel to nor baptize them contrary to the will and wish of their masters, nor to meddle with or influence them in the least to cause them to be dissatisfied with their situations in this life, thereby jeopardizing the lives of men. Such interference we believe to be unlawful and unjust and dangerous to the peace of every government, allowing human beings to be held in servitude. So, anyway, I just want us to kind of, again, the Doctrine and Covenants, those sections, those are talking about a different kind of slavery than the Torah is talking about. And so, so a couple of things that I want to say outright is that slavery in the Torah is actually is not commanded. Like, there is no commandment to own slaves. Mm-hmm. Okay, but is allowed. However, in the Torah, slavery, it's always or almost always it's actually more properly understood as indentured servitude. It is debt slavery or criminal slavery. So if someone commits a crime, theft being the classic example, we're going to talk about that here. Theft, someone commits a crime of theft and then they can't repay, well, then their punishment is to become a slave.
Yeah, interestingly, jail or prison is not really a concept in Torah.
That's right. There are no jails.
Yeah.
In Torah. There are jails mentioned, but they're always heathen nations. So yeah. Joseph is thrown in jail, but it's in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Samson is thrown in jail, the Philistines. Peter is kept in a jail that's a Roman jail.
Yeah, it's the Lord. It appears that the Lord is not a fan of prison or jail, and I don't know. That's another topic, but that's very interesting.
Yes.
Now Jeremiah is thrown into jail, but that is not. That's not right. It's not.
Right. That was a wicked thing.
It's a wicked thing,
and I don't even think it was a. Was it a jail? Like
it was no. It wasn't a jail. It was like a pit. The stocks.
Muddy.
He was thrown into the stocks. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting to know. So,
okay.
Servitude is punishment for crimes, certain crimes.
But like criminal slavery is something that the Torah approves of. Now, this is different than other nations. Like we've all heard probably. In like Arab nations, if you get caught stealing, then they cut your hand off, right? Or that could be like a punishment. The Torah is not interested in this at all, because that just makes for a person that is now less productive than they could have been. Instead, God says, Jehovah says, someone steals, we're going to make them a productive member of society.
Learn work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so we're not going to throw them in prison, where they just, again, do nothing, and we're not going to cut off their hand, where they can do less. We're going to actually put them to work, and it's restorative justice. You actually pay back your debt by working, rather than like rotting in a cell or whatever. Now, a lot of people think that the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, that it actually abolished slavery, but it actually did not abolish all slavery. So it says, this is the text of the 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. Wherever the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. So slavery is still actually allowed, according to the U.S. Constitution. But the slavery that's allowed now is actually like in line with Torah, whereas before it wasn't. And actually, it was a few years ago, I don't remember now, in the state of Utah. The Utah Constitution actually has something very similar to that. It says criminal slavery is allowed. Like we can basically force convicts to work, clean up the roads, make license plates or whatever, turn big rocks into little rocks. We can actually have them serve the community. There was actually a vote put out to strike that from the from the Utah Constitution because of these negative connotations of the word slavery. I voted against it, but it passed. So
naturally,
yeah, but people just don't understand. So we have examples of this actually also in the Book of Mormon. Wars. Captain Moroni captures prisoners of war, and rather than just throwing them in jail or guarding them all the time, what does he do? Puts them to work, building fortifications and things like that. So this is the other kind of slavery. It's again a kind of criminal slavery. It's the Israelites are allowed to take prisoners of war. There are rules about what just warfare looks like, but it's usually defensive. So if someone comes and attacks us, and they are hell bent on destroying Israel, then we can capture them, and those captured people, we don't throw them in jail. We put them to work as slaves. Now, I will say that in Hebrew, the word slave is actually the Hebrew word behind that is eved or leved, and it can be translated in a whole host of ways. We translate it as servant, bond servant, slave, hired servant, even, and several other things. And most of the time, if the text does not say specifically bond servant, then it should actually just, if it says slave, it should just be understood as an indentured or a hired servant, rather than an actual owned bond servant. So, okay. So some of the things that are different between biblical, Torah slavery and the slavery that we're more familiar with is if a slave runs away, they can basically quit at any time. If they run away, the commandment is that they are not to be returned to their service. Okay?
Wow. Well, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So slaves have rights. God says, God reminds them over and over, you were once slaves. Okay. And so they are required to treat their slaves as kindly as possible.
That's what I was going to say earlier. The difference between Israel and the surrounding nations. I mean, this is applicable in so many different with so many different aspects of society. But is that God regulates servitude on behalf of the servants, the slaves.
That's right.
I mean, in that you can apply that same principle to different aspects of society, but Torah makes it abundantly clear that God really cares about servants, women, children, and foreigners.
Yeah, that's right. So, the slaves basically, the slaves, the servants, they become part of the family.
Yeah.
And the way that these laws were interpreted anciently is like the master, he does not eat until his servants have been fed. Like they eat first, which is backwards, right?
In Torah.
Yeah, right. They eat first.
Amazing.
Job, in the book of Job, it says Job is like announcing his righteousness and saying the righteous things he does. And one of them is he says, I've listened to the complaints of my servants. Like when they say something is not right, or our working conditions are not safe, or whatever it is, then I listen to them and get things fixed. They are for all intents and purposes like basically equivalent to employees, right? They can quit, and actually this is basically what it is. It's the biblical slavery, for the most part anyway, is there is a difference between Israelite and non-Israelite servants. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. But for Israelite servants, it's basically hired labor. It specifically says, the Torah says, your slaves, you are to treat them as though they were hired laborers.
That's amazing. And
there's actually a law, and we're going to mention it here, that if you have a hired, you have a servant, an indentured slave, and they want to stay with you, why in the world would they want to? They could go free, but if they want to stay with you, they can. But there's a covenant involved. Why would they want to stay? Well, it's because they have steady, dependable employment. This is a huge thing, like in ancient times. There's no like labor laws, unions. There's no minimum wage, health insurance, benefits or whatever. So you're like kind of a lot more like on your own. And if you're not like, if you don't have enough land, or you're not a landowner, for whatever reason, because you were born into a poor family, or because you don't have a knack to manage your money, or the discipline to manage your money and property properly, or whatever it is, you can join someone else's family, basically, and become a part of that, and have a stable living situation. You can even have have a family and whatever, and for the most part, the family will go free as well. Like, or it could be free if you wanted to. So there's also all kinds of rights too. Like if your master like injures you, and even small injuries, then by law you are free. Like if you get a tooth knocked out, you are free.
Your master has to let you go.
Yep. The debt that you may have owed is canceled.
Because your master abused you.
He abused you, yeah. And a lot of times people read those verses where it says, if a master beats his slave and like damages his eye or knocks out his tooth, and they read that in the most backwards way possible. They read that and they see, this barbaric Old Testament is actually like encouraging the beating of, or allowing the beating of slaves. And it is actually not. It's actually the other way around.
It is a judgment against the master.
That's right. Yeah, if they beat you to the point of like permanent injury, okay, and even slight permanent injuries, then they have crossed the line. Now there is a possibility that slaves could be punished corporally, have corporal punishment, but there's judges, and the slaves actually can like reach out to the judges, be like, hey, my master is not treating us fairly. Then the judges might say, you are free.
Yeah, and
this is not the way that American slavery was at all.
American slavery was brutal, and neither of us are like saying we should have servants, and but we're highlighting we're highlighting how God approaches this in his law, and it is by far superior to anything else that existed at the time, and existed even in America very recently, relatively speaking.
Right.
So God clearly cares about all human beings, but especially those who are vulnerable: foreigners, servants, women, and children.
Yeah. Now, yeah. I will say, I actually, a little caveat on what you said there.
Yeah.
Actually do think, in certain contexts, like I believe I think the 13th Amendment is good.
Yeah.
Actually, I think slavery would be fine, for if we, in certain contexts.
Like criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, criminals should be. They should not be working out in the gym, in the prison.
Just rotting in a cell most of the day and then having like an hour of liberty and it's like, what is that? What good does that? Well, you could, Anyway, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, there's, they should be rather than serving jail time or like paying criminal fines to the government or whatever, or even like justice. What's the opposite? It's punitive versus restorative.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the two approaches to like criminal justice. I just think restorative justice is like so far superior.
It potentially benefits all parties, whereas punitive, I mean, that literally doesn't actually help anyone unless it convinces the criminal to seize, but it doesn't like restore anything.
Yeah. Now these laws of slavery in ancient times is essentially like a social welfare program. This is what you do with poor people. If your brother becomes poor to the point where he cannot support himself or his family, then some other Israelite who is well off is supposed to
take them in,
purchase him. Yeah, and when we say purchase, it's funny. It just the words oftentimes mean more than the concepts, but we ought to be thinking about these things conceptually. So, if we say this Israelite purchased that Israelite, then we're like, ooh, that's like immoral.
Yeah, it sounds bad.
But if we say this Israelite redeemed this Israelite, then that's like a holy spiritual thing. But it is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, this Israelite redeemed that Israelite from potential starvation.
Right, and redemption is purchasing someone.
Oh yeah, right.
That is what redemption means.
Right, to redeem.
It means to pay a price for something.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say we have been redeemed, that means we have been bought. And we've been bought with for a price. The price was spiritually. The price was the blood of the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
But so again, it's like the words that we use. We say servant. And a lot of times, like someone's serving, then that's like, it's good. If someone's a slave, then we're like, oh, even though in Hebrew that is the exact same word. And throughout the scriptures, well, it's interesting. Do you remember, or the audience, when we were talking about the Exodus and Moses is going to Pharaoh? And God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh, let my people, the Israelites, go because they are my slaves. That's basically what he says. I mean, it says so that they can serve me, or they are my servants. But the word is the same. You could translate it as they are my slaves. And so when God, when the Israelites were redeemed, when each of us is redeemed, like individually, it doesn't mean that we're just free to do what we want. That means that we have a new master. That means that instead of being a slave to the world and to Babylon and to Lucifer, to Egypt, whatever, instead of being a slave to ourselves sometimes, now we are God's slaves. It doesn't mean that we are free to do whatever we want. Redemption means that we've traded one master. We haven't traded one master for another. It was with our consent, but we've said, yes, I would rather have you as my master. I would rather be your slave than slave to the world. That is what redemption means. So, through the scriptures, we actually have a whole bunch. Like Moses is actually called God's slave.
God's servant.
Yeah, God's servant, but it's Leved, God's slave.
Same word.
Yeah, Paul says, I, Paul, God's slave. James, I am God's slave. In the King James it says a servant, but it literally says, James, a slave of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greeting. Okay?
Yeah, it's
Amos,
interesting.
Isaiah, they're all God's slave, God's slave, God's slave.
That's how they describe themselves.
Peter, God's slave. Peter actually says to the saints, he says, now that you've been set free from the world, you should act as though you were God's slaves. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We like the different kinds of servitude, indentured servitude, criminal servitude. We are all of the above to God. We are all criminals.
Yeah.
We have all broken His law. We all lack. We need to be in servitude because of what we lack. We're like indentured servitude for or bond, being a bond servant. Any kind of servitude applies to us.
Yeah.
In our relationship with God, but
yeah.
But what's amazing is God elevates us from servants and handmaids to sons and daughters to beloved friends. There's a 3-part elevation, and he's echoing that in these judgments here, in these laws.
Yeah, what you just described is Pardes.
Pardes, yeah.
We've got slaves, but we're already, we haven't even started talking about the Torah portion, and we're understanding that I have not, it's quoting God, I have not at any time, paraphrasing God, not at any time have I given a temporal commandment. Everything is spiritual. So yeah, we are redeemed. We become God's slave, but slaves become part of the family. Sons
and daughters.
Oh yeah, sons and daughters, and then they might even become married
into the family.
Yeah, and then and then they become
friends.
Elevated even more than that, right? And we're getting into Sod here, right?
Yeah, we are getting into Sod with that. Yeah, and that's God's desired relationship. I love how it's echoed in these quote unquote temporal laws.
Okay, so there's more that could be said, I guess, but I think we should get into the actual Mishpatim.
Yeah.
Here, okay. So it starts out starts out. These are the judgments, the Mishpatim, which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years shall he serve, and the 7th he shall go out for free for nothing. So his debt's paid. So this 7th year is the sabbatical year. We'll talk about that more in Leviticus.
Or Sabbath of years.
That's correct.
Another way to say it.
Right.
So servants go free after the 7th year.
That's right. In the 7th year.
Yeah. At the beginning of the 7th year, servants go free.
Right.
Amazing.
Yes. Right. Now this is interesting too. Now at first this seems harsh, okay, but again I want you to listen with your spiritual ears. I'm gonna read a little bit. I'm gonna read through verse 6, I guess. Okay. Okay, verse 3. Actually, would you mind?
3 through 6.
3 through 6. Yeah.
If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go with him. That's good. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. Mm-hmm. So whatever he came in with, he goes out with as a servant. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to his door, or unto the door's post. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So the covenant token there.
That's right. Yeah. Covenant token in a covenant place. So, I mean, I just want you to think of, okay, this, we have, I like that you brought up the Sabbath. It's the Sabbath of years. Okay, but there are cycles of Sabbath. So there's weekly, there's a weekly 7-day cycle. There's also like an annual. Annually, there are 7 special Sabbaths, and then every 7 years there's a Sabbath of years, and then you have 7 cycles of 7 years, and then there's a bigger Sabbath called the Jubilee.
Yeah, the 49th to 50th year is the Jubilee year.
Right, and then even on a much bigger scale, we have the earth in its 1,000-year days, and the Doctrine and Covenants talks about this, and the Old and New Testaments also talk about this. That the earth is going to have 6 days, or 6 years, six periods of temporal existence, and then this 7th 1,000 years, which is the millennial day, wherein we are not going to be, like, Satan is going to be bound. So, in other words, he will not be the master of anyone anymore. He right now, during this 6,000 years, we are all like servants. Okay, to some of us servants to the world and to Lucifer. Some of us servants to God. But even this imagery here of like serving for 6 years and then going free in the 7th is a picture of the earth in its existence. So think about what we as Latter-day Saints believe about eternal families and eternal marriage. Okay, so let's suppose, right? I mean, we believe that it is possible for us to be with our wives forever, okay, and our children, but only if we are servants to God, right? Those who are not servants to God, those who decide that they want to go out and not be servants to God anymore, they will not have their families to go out with them. They will go out alone. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I want you to think about this with like years of the restoration. It says if the master, so this is God, has given him a wife and she's borne him sons and daughters, but if the man like leaves the employment of his of God, then he goes out by himself. But if he says, I love my master and my wife and children, I will not go out, then he will get, he'll get his ear pierced. He'll have blood drawn, and he'll have a mark in his body. And he will be able then to, yes, he will serve God forever, but also with his wife and children.
And remember, servitude with God equals sonship and daughtership, and eventually belovedness. I mean, friendship.
That's right. Amen. Now, something else amazing here, okay? Says that he will bring him to the door. So the door of the house is like a place of covenant making. So, we talked about the Passover, and they put the blood, of the lamb on the door. And here we have another example of this place where this covenant is made at the door. Now it says, bring him to the door and he'll put an awl through his ear. That doesn't mean that he gets his ear pinned to the door, to the door frame. Yeah. That's just where it's happening. Okay. But in the New Testament, Yeshua says, I am the door. And if anyone will enter, come in by me. So Yeshua is referring to this imagery that we have with doorways and covenants and blood at blood at the doorway. Jesus saying, I am that door. So, amazing. I want to say one other thing about verse 6. It says, the master shall bring him unto the judges. Now, the word there, judges, the word there is Elohim.
Nice.
So, which is translated as judges, like earthly judges sometimes. So there's a lot that could be read into that, though. Like, so basically, this is being done before God and these witnesses, right? Or even angels too. Angels are called Elohim as well. So when we say something about doing something before God, angels, and these witnesses, we would actually be saying doing this before Elohim, Elohim, and Elohim.
So just Elohim.
You're right.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Verse 7. If a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, like, oh my goodness, selling your child? Well, again, keep in mind, these are ancient times. Living is hard.
What if you can't take care of your daughter? Do you watch her starve?
Right.
Is it better for her to starve?
Yeah, and this is, again, these are not commanded. These are not things that you must do.
Yeah.
These are options. This is what poor people have as options. You know, in the New Testament it says, let's see, where is that? I think it's in, it's one of Paul's letter, like 2 Thessalonians. Doctrine and Covenants says this as well in section 42 and also section 75. Basically says, whoever will not work will not eat.
Mm-hmm.
But, Paul, when he says that, he's referring to this. Like, he ties working to, like, poor people don't just get handouts. If you're poor, then there's another Israelite who's better off, who will take you in as a laborer. And then, then the laborer will wear the idler will not wear the garment of the laborer, but the laborers do get to wear the garment of the laborer. That's the Doctrine and Covenants language. So, anyway, says, sell his daughter to be a maidservant. Now, the word there, maidservant, is actually different. Before we've been talking about Aved, and there's a feminine form of that, which escapes me. I don't remember at the moment, but this is actually not even the feminine form of that. This is, the word is Amma. Which is basically a wife. It's sometimes translated as concubine. It's a wife of. It's basically a wife whose children are legally not going to inherit necessarily, or not going to inherit the land at least. Okay, but still, part of the family. So it says she shall not go out as the men servants do. But if she please.
So she won't go out as the men servants do. This is great. She's a woman. Men can do quite a bit more work than women usually. She's not going to go out and be laboring in the hot sun as the men servants do.
Right. You're right.
So this is merciful.
Yeah, it is. So if she please not her master, then, it says who hath betrothed her. So if the master desires not to take her as a wife. A lot of times, these maidservants, like they would go to a family. They would be, it says sell there, but you can think of this as like a bride price, which is a normal thing back then. If the master, decides not to marry her, then it says that she shall be let her be redeemed. But not to sell her, to a foreign nation. Actually, because he had dealt deceitfully with her. Like this is something that her family and even she wanted, and he had kind of promised that, but he decided no. I'm not going to actually endow you to be my wife. Then he can't deal deceitfully with her there by like selling her to another nation or whatever. She can be redeemed. But says verse 9, If he has betrothed her to his son, then he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. So basically he needs to treat her as though she were his daughter. Which, in this case, it might have, there might be like a sexual connotation here. That if you have purchased her, given the bride price with the intention of taking her as your wife, but then you give it to your son, then you can't be like, let's share her or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, that is not allowed. That might be something that flies with slavery and other, or servitude in other nations, but not in Israel. Like, you will treat her the way that daughters are treated. So, okay, 10. If the master take him another wife, okay, like in addition to this Amah, okay, but this is understood to apply to any wives, then her food, her raiment, her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. So it is not, this is it's not allowed for men to like take resources from one wife to support a new wife. You have to have enough resources to support them all. Like, and if you don't, then you need to get yourself into, then you're not allowed to. You're basically not allowed to take additional wives until then.
And guess what is just baked into this without question? The fact that men are able to take additional wives in God's law.
Yeah, that's part of the Israelite family structure and law. It's just it's baked in, like you said. Yeah. Okay. Now again, not that any of these things are required, but these are allowed. Okay. Okay. Now we're getting into, this is something that's very interesting. He that smiteth a man so that he die, he shall surely be put to death. Actually, the Targum actually says how he shall be put to death. Like, if you smite someone, so you hit them with your fist or presumably another object.
Like a blunt object or something.
Yeah. Then he shall be put to death with a sword.
Oh.
Like, that's the justice that way. So it's interesting. A lot of times the justice that we see here is like, it's like one up. Like, you hit someone with a bat, then the punishment is you get hit with a sword. Like a bat and killed them, a baseball bat, you get sliced with a sword. Okay. So, but this is interesting. Verse 13 says, and if a man lie not in wait, in other words, this wasn't premeditated. Yeah.
This is not first-degree homicide.
Right.
It's second-degree homicide.
Yeah. If a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him, meaning the victim, God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee. Now, the Peshat meaning of this is if there's some kind of like negligent homicide, then there will be a city of refuge, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will get into that. There'll be a place where people who are innocent of murder, but maybe guilty of manslaughter or some kind of something lesser than murder, they can flee to this city of refuge. Now, if they don't, justice actually allows, justice allows a life for a life. So, like the kinsman of the person who's killed, they can actually seek out vengeance. But if you run to the city of refuge, then you're actually safe, as long as then there will be a trial, and if the trial determines that indeed it was negligence, or it was not, or not even negligence, just accidental or whatever.
If it was not premeditated,
then the death penalty will not be given out.
Can you imagine accidentally killing somebody and having to like go run home, babe. We got to take the kids and go to the city of refuge. I mean, what a nightmare. But at least that is available.
That's right. Yeah, and yeah, we probably won't talk more about that right now.
Yeah, because we'll
get
cover
to
that later.
Yeah, but this is something. This is an amazing Book of Mormon connection here, and this has to do with Nephi slaying Laban. So Nephi specifically says, this is in First Nephi chapter 4. I'm going to go there. Nephi is, they just, like Nephi's, well, the angels actually said, right? Stop beating your brother. And Nephi says, okay, I'm going to go back. You guys hide. And Nephi says, he went back into the city, not knowing beforehand what he should do. In other words, and Nephi specifically mentions that I had not premeditated anything. I had no plan except to go and see what God would open up.
That's so interesting. He's vindicating himself in his record. He's saying, I did not break the law.
Yeah, which is interesting because a lot of times this story of Nephi killing Laban is pointed at as like revelation trumps
The law.
or like we follow the spirit rather than the letter or something like that. And this killing of Laban, and then this is another like very it's kind of a spicy story. It's controversial, but still it is used. And I'm guilty of this. I've used this in the past as an example of how like personal revelation is more important. Like personal revelation allows you to break the law, and I repent of that because that is a falsehood. But Nephi was actually, and this story is actually in line with this. So Nephi says, I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the thing that I should do. Nevertheless, as I went forth, and as I came near to the house of Laban, I beheld a man that he had fallen to the earth before me, and he was drunken with wine. Okay. I'm going to skip down a little bit. The Spirit constrained him that I should kill him, but I said in my heart, never at any time have I shed the blood of a man. Like, I don't want to do this, right? I shrunk from it. The Spirit said unto me, behold, the Lord hath delivered him into thy hand. So here it says, if a man lie not in wait, so it's not premeditated, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee.
That's amazing.
Does Nephi have a place appointed to flee?
It's called the Promised Land.
It's called the Promised Land. Yeah, it's a whole land of refuge.
Wait. That's crazy. Remember, in the apocryphal story of Joseph and Asenath, which you all have obviously read, God tells Asenath when he appears to her that her name shall be City of Refuge.
Oh,
and where is the land of Asenath or Joseph? Oh, the Promised Land.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that you brought that detail out. Yeah,
God literally sends Nephi and their whole family to the land of Asenath, the City of Refuge. That's crazy.
Right. So
Joseph just made it up, didn't he?
I know. So yes, I will admit that the personal revelation that Nephi received was an application of the law that he would not have come to on his own. But it is still actually in keeping with the law. And that revelation did not supersede the law. That revelation was in line with the law.
And there's another reason, another angle which has been brought up. Laban accused them of robbery, so he falsely accused them and then sought to slay them twice.
Right, and stole their property.
Stole their property. What is the penalty for accusing somebody of a crime that they didn't do?
It's the penalty for making false accusations is that you receive the punishment that would be given if the accusation were true.
So you received the punishment that they would have
that
received
they would have received.
if your false accusation stood. So what is the punishment for robbery? Which is
death.
It's death.
Yeah.
So Laban was already, by law, by God's law, Laban deserved death already.
Yeah.
But this is another witness or another justification for what Nephi did.
Now I will say normally, okay. Now when Nephi killed Laban, I guarantee there was like the whole city was abuzz.
This was the talk of the town.
Absolutely.
Laban was part of the elite.
Yeah. Right. So and normally, justice is meted out by courts.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in this case, and there are other cases that we have in the scriptures too. Like we don't need to think that Nephi doing this is some crazy thing. Like,
no.
But God delivered him into
Yep.
his hand, and delivered a criminal into his hand, a wicked man that Nephi was to slay, and in doing so obtained his clothing, so
The emblems of kingship.
yeah.
The garment, and the sword, and the sacred records.
There's a lot behind that story.
Yeah, there's a lot of sewed and sewed. There's a lot of sewed in that story.
Yeah.
That whole story. In fact, that's what I had in mind at the beginning of this portion when I said Nephi went up to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
That whole it's like a little mini epic.
So anyway, I think that's an amazing verse 13
Well,
right there.
thank you for illuminating my understanding because I had previously not considered it from that angle. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the fact that the wording, if God shall deliver him into your hand, I mean,
Right.
that's wild.
Right. Okay. He that smiteth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Okay. And verse 17, he that curses his father or mother shall surely be put to death. This is actually repeated in the New Testament. We'll talk more about that in Deuteronomy. I want to mention verse 16 specifically. Because this is one of the differences, okay, between biblical slavery and the colonial slavery, transatlantic slavery, and also the Islamic slavery. He that stealeth a man and selleth him, if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Okay? So, actually, interesting, this verse right here, right? I mean, this is slavery. If you stealeth a man, so that's kidnapping, that is exactly what happened, right, in Africa. There was African tribes warring with one another. They would capture one another, whether it was in open war or it's just like slave raids.
Raiding,
and that's probably more likely than one. One tribe of Africans would raid another tribe, capture people, bring them to the coastal cities, where they would sell them to European traders, who would ship them to Europe and especially to the colonies, right, and then the states later on. That act is actually worthy of death, as that brings the death penalty. And actually, it's interesting that the rabbis, just like in the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments actually don't say you shall not kill. They actually say you shall not murder, because there's other kinds of killing. We've talked about them a little bit, and it doesn't say thou shalt not lie, but it's a specific kind of lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness. There's other places in the Torah where other kinds of lies are dealt with, but this thou shalt not steal. The understanding actually is usually that it's talking about kidnapping. Actually, that the Ten Commandments says thou shalt not
Kidnap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And it's that this is kind of a verse 16 here is kind of an explanation of that.
Stealing covers all of it, whether it's stealing a human or an object. But that's interesting that the main connotation might be kidnapping. Right.
Yeah. Now I will say too that there are other just uninformed. That's the most
Charitable
way to put it. uninformed people who will say things like, the Bible condones rape. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
It's uninformed is a charitable way. Like, idiotic is what came to mind. So now I've said it.
It's blatantly wrong.
Yeah, it's idiotic. That is not in keeping. Like, why would? And a lot of times this is atheists who say this, but unfortunately there are like believing people who think that God actually allowed rape, and like this is like evidence for why the Old Testament is bad and the New Testament is good or something. But it's just, if they thought about it a little more, without having the contamination of these atheistic type thoughts, then you'd see that this is not the case. And actually, this verse here. This is always, like, anciently. This has been. This is a prohibition on slavery, but this is also the punishment for rape, too. Because if one person, if a man rapes a woman, he's actually stealing a person for a time to get something or do something against their will. That is a death. A crime worthy of death.
Good.
Yeah. So the Bible does not condone rape. In fact, rape falls under this verse 16 here. So, okay. So here we go. This is interesting. Verse 18 and 19. Okay, like if people are, men are fighting together and someone gets injured to the point where he like loses his time, like he's recovering.
Can't labor.
Can't
provide.
Yeah. Then again, this is restorative. The person who injured him has to make it good. You have to pay for the loss of his time, right? And cause him to be thoroughly healed. So you pay for his medical expenses and also his lost wages, basically.
Good.
Okay, like it's just, but people are like, that's the lower law. Like, what's the higher law? Like,
yeah.
What are you saying we should get rid of that?
That's
ridiculous.
I was just talking about this in the Sermon on the Mount when Christ is saying, "You have heard it said this, but you should do this." So many people, and I was guilty of this too because I didn't know Torah. So many people say, "See, Christ is replacing the lower law with the higher law." Guess what? Every quote-unquote higher law that Christ says in the Sermon on the Mount is also in Torah.
100%.
These quote lower laws and higher laws in the Sermon on the Mount are all in Torah.
They're all Torah.
There's not one instance.
They're all the law.
They are all the law. There is not one instance in the Sermon on the Mount where Christ sort of offers this
where
he
he invents a new thing.
Yeah, where he invents a new
proposes a new thing.
Where he proposes a quote unquote higher law that isn't already in Torah.
Right.
So that's good to keep in mind. The law is amazing.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about what that means.
Well, actually, do your homework.
Before, yeah.
Go read the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 5 in Matthew, and then go look for all those quote-unquote higher laws in Torah. They're all there.
Yeah, they are. That's
Rant
right.
over.
Okay. All right, here we go. If a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Okay, like it's allowing, or like encouraging masters to beat their slaves, right? No.
Nope.
It says he shall surely be punished. It's like, oh, but he only gets punished. Well, do you know what the punishment is? The punishment is in verse 12. He that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. Like the master gets put to death.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it means. It doesn't mean he gets some less punishment. It means he gets the punishment that has been prescribed. Okay. All right. However, notwithstanding, it says, okay, and this is controversial as well. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. Okay. So, again, people will read this with like the most uncharitable way possible, and they'll say, oh, if the servant like lives 2 days and then dies on the third day, then the master is like off the hook. That is not what that is saying. Because if someone dies 3 days later, then that falls under verse 12 as well.
He died from the
He
injury.
died from the injuries. Yeah.
He'll be put to death. This is saying
What it's saying is he doesn't die
if he lives.
if he lives. Yeah, that's just how we're saying. Then he shall not be punished, for he is his money. Okay, now some things will say for he is his property or whatever. Now the question is, who is he and who is his? Okay.
Okay, I can see how this could be flipped on its head.
That's right.
Like in contradiction to the way we might assume it actually reads. You know.
That's right. So I will say a lot of times people say this is so debasing because it's just equating slaves with property. Like they're not people. A slave is just money. A slave is just property or whatever. But what this is actually saying is that he is the master. His is the servant. The master is the servant's source of money. The master is the servant's source of income and livelihood. He and his family, and also the rest of the servants too. So, in other words, if the slave survives, there will be punishment. Okay. But he will not be punished with the punishment of death, but the punishment will be light, because we don't want to eliminate the source of this man's income. We don't want to eliminate the source of the servant's income and livelihood.
Yes, like you just said, we would normally read that, for the servant is the master's money, he's his property. It's the opposite. The master is the source of income. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, these things are, these are legislated, on the servant's behalf. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. God cares about servants, foreigners, women, children, widows, orphans. God, Torah legislates on behalf of all of those. And if you look at the laws of the other nations around Israel, Torah is always superior in every case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amen.
It's amazing. Truly something else.
Okay. All right, here's another very commonly misused set of verses here. Okay. You want to read verse 22 and 23?
Yeah. If men strive or fight, quarrel,
yeah,
and hurt a woman with child so that her
like we were talking about physical violence.
If men are in a fight, if they're brawling,
brawling. There's a better translation.
And hurt a woman with child so that her fruit depart from her, yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine.
As Elohim determines. Okay. And verse 23.
And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. So, if the baby dies, the husband will determine the punishment.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So this is how it goes. This is how this verse is misinterpreted.
Okay.
And this verse is misinterpreted, and the LDS footnote there encourages this misinterpretation. So here it says, the men fighting accidentally hurt a woman who's pregnant, so that her fruit depart from her. Okay, so it says down here she has a miscarriage.
Oh yeah, right.
Okay, then the husband says he has to pay me a fine.
Mm-hmm. That's the common interpretation.
Yeah. In other words, if you kill an unborn baby, it's not the same as it's not murder. It's not killing. It's not the same as killing. It's not a person, because in other places it says if you kill a person, then it's the death penalty. Mm-hmm. But if you kill a baby, then you just it's a fine maybe. Or in other words, even God's law considers on the unborn less than human. Okay, that's the interpretation that comes if you read it that way. But what this actually says, okay, says if her fruit depart from her, what that actually means is not miscarriage, but premature birth.
Okay.
So if she gives birth and it's premature
Because of the quarreling.
because of her injuries,
Because she gets caught in between the brawl.
yeah, yep, and she gives birth prematurely because of the injury or the stress or whatever. Then, but it says, but no mischief follow.
The baby doesn't die.
The baby doesn't die. That's right. Mischief, or like mischief, you might actually equate mischief with miscarriage. Actually, mischief actually now it means like
Trickery
or something. Yeah, but like the old, like the original meaning of the word mischief is to come to an unfortunate end. So that would be like the miscarriage. Like, so in other words, what it says is, if she gives birth prematurely, but not miscarries, okay, so the baby survives, then he'll be punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him. It's like, hey, my baby has health problems because of this premature birth. So, we're going to go before the judges, and you're going to pay damages. Okay, but verse 23: if mischief follow, meaning the baby dies, like it's a miscarriage. Okay, then thou shalt give life for life. In other words, that's the death penalty. The unborn is actually protected here, and not the other way around. But this is and this law is actually, it's amazing. It's amazing that in this country we have in some places our laws are so confused because we have on the same books. There are states where if you kill your unborn child intentionally, then it is no crime. But if there's a pregnant woman who is killed, then the person who killed her is guilty of double homicide, like, because that baby is considered a human life. Like there are places where like both those contradictory laws are like on the books in the same place, same time. We are so like we just have no moral compass, in some ways.
It'd be great if we could just look to God's law.
It would be great.
I mean, our founders advocated for that.
Yeah.
It was John Adams who said, "I wish we had more Deuteronomy in the Constitution," right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Then we have this famous saying here: eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And again, this is seen by people as like barbaric, eye for an eye, when in fact this is described. This is an idiom describing just recompense,
restorative justice.
Yeah, and this is actually not something barbaric. This is actually putting a limit. Because anciently, if you this had a lot to do with class as well. If there was a poor man who poked out the eye of a rich man, then the punishment would be death. Right? Or death for that man and his family. Right? And I take his land. Like that would be the kind of punishment. So this is actually saying, no. The most that someone can be punished is like up to the limit of the damage that was caused. And so that's the idiomatic eye for an eye. But the Torah is not ever about if someone's eye is poked out, then like literally poking out the other guy's eye, because that just makes it so that they can't work. That just makes them less productive.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is we go before the judges, and the judge says, "How much is your eye worth?" And they might say it's worth $500,000, and there might be some negotiations back and forth. That's too much. how about would you take less? And they would come to an agreement for what that eye was worth. And then nobody's eye gets poked out, but there's like an equivalent settlement that's made.
And how do these village elders cultivate wisdom? How do they cultivate the wisdom necessary for rendering these judgments?
By pondering the law.
It's right here. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, right.
We're cultivating that wisdom right now.
I had it put to me this way one time, is they would come to a settlement, okay? But the judge, in the courtroom, they might have a fire with a hot poker in it. And the judge would say, okay, good. Make your payments. Otherwise, we got the hot poker. So,
oof. I'll find a way to make the payments.
Right. Okay.
Or if it's a wealthy man, maybe he just, example, maybe he sells a quarter of his vineyard or gives the man a quarter of his vineyard. There's creativity in here.
Yeah.
There's a million different ways in which you can
right.
restore somebody.
Right. And the law calls for judges, which means that there are judgments to be made. And the law does not spell out every case. It spells out examples of possible cases.
That's why this is wisdom literature.
Yeah.
That's because this is cultivating wisdom that is meant to be, like you said, it's not going to enumerate every single possible case, but by reading these judgments and these instructions, you will develop an intuition that allows you to render just judgment in any case.
And yes, and it's wisdom, and it is the spirit of the law.
Spirit of the law.
The wisdom is the spirit of the law. Yeah, and that is what fills in the gaps, right? The cases that are not spelled out exactly. You have the spirit of the law to guide you there.
Oh, this is so good.
Okay. Verse 26, if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish. Okay, and this doesn't... he shall let him go for his eye's sake, and he smite out the man's servant's tooth, maid servant's tooth, let him go free for his tooth's sake.
We already covered that.
We covered that, yeah. So, and I don't think that means that they lose the eye completely even. It could just mean that they have like a loss of vision. Like a diminished vision. Not even like a total blindness.
Or a chipped tooth.
Yeah, even you're right. Like some permanent damage occurs. Then we have here, if you have an ox, okay, that kills someone, that they die, then we're going to stone the ox. And then the owner will be acquitted, because it was an accident. Okay, but if the ox was known to be aggressive in the past, and the owner had not kept him in, the owner is negligent and lets the ox out, and it gores someone, then the owner is going to be put to death also.
Why stone the ox instead of just slitting its throat?
That's a good question. It's like a statute inside of a judgment.
I'm just saying, stoning it is a communal event.
Yeah.
The village or the community are gathering.
Right.
Why? I'm just pondering out loud. It's so much easier and quicker to slit its throat.
This is that's I've never asked that question. This is a beautiful example of a question that you might ask if you want to know what is this, the spiritual.
What is the...
Why? What God says this is a spiritual commandment. What is the spiritual meaning of that? I think you're onto something. That this is a communal thing. Meeting out that kind of justice. And I mean that might be something that the owner will notice more when all his neighbors all gather to do this together. It's I feel the displeasure of my whole community. I don't know if that's necessarily a spiritual meaning, but that's like a there's like a communal. I don't know what
mourning.
There's
Communal mourning.
There's mourning and there's like cohesion in the community.
And again, God is...
And there's spiritual ramifications of that kind of thing.
God is ultra reasonable. It's not like we're stoning this ox because... it's not like to punish the ox for a moral failing, because oxen are not capable of morality. But there's something deeper here, and maybe we should pull on this thread in our as we meditate.
Yeah.
But there's something here. There is a reason for every single ritual in Torah. God is very precise. This is not inconsequential, and I appreciate that you've been pointing that out.
No, go ahead, continue.
I'll have more to say later, especially when it comes to stoning human beings.
Okay.
I have more to say about ritual here, but I'll let that be for now.
I will say some of these things, like we've actually talked about these as well in previous Torah portions. In Noah, for example, one of the commandments that's reiterated to Noah as he comes off the ark is this very thing. If an animal kills a man, the animal is to be killed. Now, that's in the Septuagint and the Masoretic text. The Joseph Smith translation changes that to another Torah commandment having to do with blood. But we'll get to that later. But anyway, I'm just saying there is, in some manuscripts, there's precedent for this as well as the abortion thing, or killing an unborn child. That's in that same section of Noah. It says if a man kills a man in a man, they will be put to death.
A baby.
Yeah, what is a man in a man? A human in a human? It's a baby.
Yep.
Yeah. So, now, in the King James doesn't say that, but the Hebrew does say that. Okay, so, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you might be like, well, I don't have an ox, so how could this even apply, even in the Peshat, even like on the surface level? And the answer is, it absolutely does apply, because, I mean, people have dangerous animals still. I mean, even people do have, some people do have oxen or cows or whatever, livestock.
Dogs kill people every year.
But dogs kill or maim people. Yeah, and we recognize that the owner is liable, and especially so if that dog has like bit somebody and then it's like let off a leash and it like kills a child or something. Yeah, it's a serious business. I mean, usually when we have, if a dog bites people, like that's like most historically anyway, like that dog will be put down if it bites an innocent person, right? I think a lot of times things have gotten, again, our moral compass is kind of strange, and sometimes there are dogs that injure innocent people that nothing happens to these days. I remember, I don't want to get into that. Anyway, just remembering cases in my mind of dog attacks.
Point being, this applies to you, even if we live in a different culture.
Yeah.
Master the Peshat level, the service level, and then extrapolate those principles, even if it doesn't directly apply to you.
Yeah.
A lot of Torah does directly apply to us. But
I had actually, I went over to my family went over to someone's house. They weren't our friends, but a house that we hadn't been to really, but they had an aggressive rooster. Have you ever seen the spur that roosters have?
Yeah.
Like it's like a claw that sticks out from their ankle, a couple of inches, and it's not sharp like a blade, but it comes to an extremely sharp point, and they are very good at using it. Anyway, like there was a rooster, okay, and like my daughter went out without any warning from them or whatever, and like got attacked by this aggressive rooster that just like she was like running away, and that rooster just like cut her back up, you know. And you know, I didn't get to, but I wanted to stone that rooster.
I would have snuck out with you in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
We're gonna go stone that rooster. Grab all your friends. No.
Anyway,
not in this culture. That wouldn't fly.
Yeah, but I'm saying that we still have, you know, we have dangerous animals still, right? Okay. And basically, this is a matter of negligence, right? And so, like, this could be applied in other areas where you may be negligent as well, and we'll get maybe more on that.
Remember, let it cultivate wisdom. Like, extrapolate principles.
Yeah.
Letter and spirit both matter.
Okay, here we go. Let's go down to verse 33. This is, again, like a matter of negligence. If a man shall open a pit or dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or ass fall in, the owner of the pit shall make it good and give money unto the owner, and the dead beast shall be his.
So he'll take the carcass.
Yep.
And what can you do with carcasses in Torah?
Yeah.
You can't really do anything.
Yeah, you can't. You can anything but eat it.
You can't eat it.
You can skin it.
Yeah, true. You can use its bones for
use bones for things. You can use its the sinews for.
But the funny thing is, it's your problem now.
That's it.
So you pay for your neighbor to replace this animal,
right?
And now the carcass is like yours to deal with. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty funny. Not funny to be in that situation, but
no. But yeah, the justice is it's fitting, and yeah, God has a sense of humor sometimes.
Oh, but this could happen to any of us. Like not this specifically in our day. Like probably not. But
right.
But this kind of thing could happen. So
right.
you know.
So you know, like what's like a spiritual interpretation of this? Okay, a pit. Okay, the Book of Mormon actually has a lot of stuff about digging a pit for your neighbor.
It does.
This is not talking about a literal pit. What is digging a pit for your? What might it mean? Or there's like a pit that's dug by the Great and Abominable Church or whatever.
I just read that last night.
Okay, like do you have any?
Yeah, it's
spiritual
it's
interpretations for it.
It's setting a trap, in order to put somebody into bondage and captivity.
Yeah.
I mean, and that could look a million different ways. You know, that could be manifest, like that's cigarette ads targeting youth. But that's also secret combinations usurping the freedom of all lands. There's a million ways in which you could set a dig a pit.
Love it. And when we're talking about like spiritual things, a lot of times I feel like false doctrines are spiritual pits.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so this is just an example of an interpretation here. If you have dug a pit and your neighbor falls in it, like it is your duty. Or if you have dug a pit or uncovered a pit, we're talking about like you've been teaching false doctrine. It is your duty to either cover that back up or like warn people to avoid that pit.
Like I wrote this book that was full of false doctrine. Don't buy that. You know, that one random example.
Right. Pull it off the shelf.
Yeah.
Stop selling it, even though, right? Yeah, if it has dangerous things in it. Okay.
I like that.
Okay. All right. More stuff about oxen. Let's go to chapter 22.
22?
22.
We did it.
We did it.
First chapter.
Yeah. Now we'll go through these the rest of the Mishpatim a little more quickly, I think.
Okay.
Because, but just realize these things are spiritual. These things are applicable at every level. These things are beautiful. These things reveal God's heart and mind, and we ought to interpret them that way. And keep in mind that sometimes when we read things and we think that they're yucky or whatever, we are probably interpreting them wrong.
Do you not think that
either we are interpreting them wrong or we are out of harmony with we are not of the same mind as God?
We're not vibrating on the same frequency as the New Agers would say.
Right.
Yeah, this is the stuff that righteous kings and prophets and our Savior Yeshua like meditated on.
That's right.
Like this was everything to them.
Yeah. So, okay. Interesting stuff here. If a man steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he should restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
Wow.
Yeah, but if, I'm going to skip down to verse 4. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. So, if you steal a sheep and you eat it, or you sell it, or whatever, then you have to pay back 4 sheep.
You owe 4 sheep. And
That's steep.
And if you can't pay that, servitude.
That's right. Yeah, then you serve that. Then you serve them, or maybe you serve someone else. I don't know, but yeah,
that wouldn't be restorative. Oh, well, okay. Serve someone else for the purpose of restoring.
Yeah, because you could be redeemed. Like they could, you could have a wealthy person like pay the debt.
Yeah, right.
And get you as a servant.
It's like literally your brother bailing you out of jail.
Yeah.
But then you owe him the bail money. You know, that's kind of a modern example.
It's the atonement. Yeah,
it is the atonement.
Yeah. Okay. Now, why are oxen more valuable? Right, 5 oxen for an ox, but only 4 sheep for a sheep. It's because oxen actually do work, sheep don't. So, like oxen are trained. They're trained animals.
So
they plow for you and do and pull carts.
And they jump through fiery hoops.
They can with enough training.
And they balance balls on their head, like a seal.
Right. So, okay, there's an interesting application of this found in 2 Samuel. This is the case with David and Bathsheba. And of course, we all know that story. I won't go into that, but David gets confronted by Nathan, the prophet, who actually tells David this parable. And the parable is, there's a wealthy man, and he has a bunch of sheep, and there's a poor man, he has a single lamb that he loves and cares for, and the wealthy man actually excuse me. The wealthy man steals the sheep from the poor man, the single sheep from the poor man, and kills it and eats it and serves it to his guests, and so Nathan is telling this story to David. David is furious at the wealthy man and says the wealthy man. Well, I'll read it. David's anger was. This is 2 Samuel 12 verse 5. David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, "As the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die." Which is not actually what Torah says should happen.
But his anger was kindled.
But he was so angry, he says, he shall surely die.
Yeah.
And then he actually pauses and says, he shall restore the lamb fourfold.
Yeah.
Because he did this thing and because he had no pity. So here, David is actually... This is actually a beautiful... Of course, we know the next thing that Nathan says is, "Thou art the man." Okay, so we go from the story there. But this is actually why we need Torah. Because Torah is a restraint against passion. Like law. Law in general is a restraint against passion and against whims. Like whims of any kind. Including spiritual whims. This is why the scriptures say, and why Joseph Smith preached, that if anyone has a revelation that contradicts former things, you may know that is a false revelation. If someone says, "I have a revelation that allows me to disregard former revelations," it is a false revelation. And so we need that. We need the Torah. We need the law, so that the king, or the mayor, or the president, or the father, the husband, whoever is in authority, the bishop, the president, the state president, whoever is in authority cannot just be, administer punishments or whatever according to their whims, be it emotional or spiritual. The law is a restraint. And, if this is in Babylon or Persia or whatever, and the king says, kill the man, who stole a sheep, then that would happen. But in Israel, even the king cannot decree that a man should be put to death for stealing a lamb. The law is a restraint. It says no. He has to restore double or fourfold.
Yeah. So referring
in this case, right?
Regarding legal whims.
Yeah.
Right. This is a check against rulers. Like rulers have to follow the law.
That's right.
Rule by law. Res publica. The founding fathers of America defined tyranny as arbitrary rule, ruling by whims.
That's right.
David just saying, he's going to die.
Yeah.
No, there's law. Law is a check. Republicanism is a check against tyranny.
Yeah.
Arbitrary decision-making.
Republicanism is Torah.
Is Torah.
Yeah.
Representative republicanism.
Thank you, Yitro.
Oh, Jethro.
Okay. And God.
And
Jethro says, if God reveals to you, then let's do that. And,
thank you, God.
And Moshe said, okay,
yeah,
I'll check. And God says, yeah.
Right. Thanks to all three.
Right.
By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Yeah, amen. I love that. Okay, here's another interesting thing. Okay? I'm going to back up verse 2 and 3. If a thief be found breaking up, so that means breaking and entering. And the implication from verse 3 is that this is like in the nighttime, okay? Mm-hmm. So if a thief be found breaking into a house at nighttime and be smitten that he die, there shall be no bloodshed for him. Okay, the person, the homeowner who killed the thief is guiltless. Mm-hmm. Okay, but if the sun be risen on him, then there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. In other words, so okay. So this is also this actually sheds another bit of interesting light on the Nephi-Laban story. So we know actually from this, or I think we can reasonably infer that the times when they went to visit Laban and asked for the plates or even offered to trade, and he accuses them of being robbers, and therefore I will slay thee, that it was probably at nighttime.
I can imagine that.
It was at nighttime so that Laban would have an alibi for why these dead men were in his house. It's because it was nighttime and they came in and they were robbers and I slayed them and there's no penalty. Right? Mm-hmm. So,
can we think through the why?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So the why here is God does not want thieves to be punished with death.
Because it's not like
it's not a capital crime.
Yeah, not a capital crime.
Yeah. However, if it's nighttime and it's dark, and in the confusion of that scenario, the homeowner may not know that.
You don't know if he's coming in to kill your wife or not, you and your wife or not. I mean,
right. You don't know if he has a weapon in his hand, or if that's just or if that screwdriver is a knife, or if that was just used to pry the lock or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So. Yeah, but if the sun is risen on him, so I think this could mean two things. It could mean one, if it's light enough to tell the situation, but it also could mean if time has passed. In other words, during the day later on, if you see someone with your bicycle, mm-hmm. like you cannot go kill them.
Yeah.
Okay, you cannot. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say exactly that. Like, if he tried to break in and you thwarted it, but then a few days later you see him, or you see your stolen good, yeah, right. That makes sense to me.
Right. Okay. Let's see. We have we even have arson here in the verse 6, verses like 7 through 15. These are like different kinds of watchmen. You put your property into someone else's hands. It could be, and there's like different rules here because it might be like you paid someone to watch, or you were just asking a favor for them to watch your animals or whatever. And there's actually some different laws there. Or if you actually hired someone's ox or something, and you were borrowing their property. Anyway, so that's there's some interesting things there. Excuse me. Okay, verse 16 and 17 are interesting. If a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, okay, lie with her. So this is like a consensual thing. This is not rape. Then he shall surely endow her to be his wife. Like, that's the punishment.
If you do the deed,
then you put a ring on it.
She's your wife now.
Yeah. Now I will say, this is obviously like an irresponsible thing to do, and which is why the next verse is actually beautiful. It says, like, this is verse 16 is like consensual. The maid and the man are, in agreement. But it was an irresponsible thing to do. So the father actually can refuse this arrangement. Okay, and if he does, like, the man has to pay still,
like the bride price.
Yeah. So this is I mean, and this is just like totally foreign in our modern society, because we think like sex is just such a casual thing, but it's serious. And so this like shows that. So I love that. Let's see.
That'd be a hard situation because then she would eventually want to be married, and she's not a virgin.
Right.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah. Now this is this law. Okay. Again, we have to look at this the right way. This is to protect the woman.
Yeah.
From a man who is willing to seduce her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is seduction.
Yeah.
A man is willing to seduce her like before they are married. This is very dangerous to her.
I mean, he could very well be a predator. I mean, imagine a 22-year-old male seducing a 15-year-old girl. He's clearly a dirtbag, most likely. Yeah, and she's not fully mature yet.
Right.
Yeah, this is for her benefit.
This is for her protection. Yeah. This is to discourage, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you like disincentivize something. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's to discourage that kind of behavior from men. Okay. Like it could be costly. And so, but to protect her, so that like men are not just casually sleeping with women because they have to, like there's the potential that they're going to either get a wife out of the deal, so they have to be serious enough because they're going to get a wife out of the deal, or they're going to have to pay anyway, even if the father refuses. So it's a bad operation. So okay. I love verse 21 and 22. So this is like a key, and we've mentioned this already, but this is how all of these things are supposed to be understood. Okay, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. So, this is what God is wanting in all of this. He does not want oppression. He wants justice. He wants people to treat one another justly and fairly, and not to abuse or use. each other. And these laws are always given from the point of view of protecting the vulnerable. So, and it says, now, and there's a lot of like law here, these judgments that explicitly protect them, but it goes on and says, if you afflict them in any way, and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children fatherless.
What is a covenant curse for abusing strangers, widows, the fatherless? War. You lose the protection on the land.
Right.
This is highlighting one of the covenant curses for not maintaining the covenant relationship with God.
I love that. Not war, but I love that insight.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say one thing from James, Epistle of James. This is a verse that was pointed out to me by my first mission president in the MTC. He asked what pure religion is. Like, can we define pure religion? Have you heard this?
No.
What this says? Okay. James actually says what pure religion is. 1 verse 27, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. That's pure religion, is to take care of the fatherless and widows, visit them in their affliction, and to keep the commandments, to keep yourself unspotted from the world.
Sounds like he's echoing Torah here.
Oh yeah, sounds like he's quoting sounds like he's quoting Torah portion Mishpatim. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe he
wrote it that week.
well, maybe in synagogue. Yeah, exactly. Maybe he was attending synagogue that week, and that was the portion. Funny how that works.
Okay, 25. If you lend money, it should not be on usury. So usury means interest, and a lot of times in modern times we interpret this to mean exorbitant, like really high interest, but actually usury means any interest at all. Now, since our money is continually losing value because the value is being stolen by inflation from the printing of money that out of thin air,
taxation through the back door,
then I think it's possible to not be sinful in or you could make an argument that it may not be sinful to have interest rates that are like equivalent to inflation.
Yeah. So it's not actual interest. You're just preserving the value of the money you loaned.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, of course, in this time and all throughout the scriptures, money is like the word that's translated money, and we've actually seen it, is kesef, which literally is silver. Mm-hmm. So silver is money.
And constitutionally, that is also the truth.
Yeah.
Silver and gold.
Silver and gold and, other commodities.
Oro y plata.
Yep. Okay. Good. Okay. Thou shalt not revile the gods. Okay. Again, that's Elohim. And that can, in verse 28, sorry. But gods can also be translated as judges or rulers, or curse the ruler of thy people.
So thou shalt not speak evil of the Lord's anointed.
Yeah, yeah, and even those placed, even though we may disagree with them, we should not revile them. We can talk about it's always important to talk about ideas and policies and whatever and laws, and not about the people themselves necessarily.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Speaking evil is like speaking lies, It's
right. Okay. Okay. Don't delay to offer the first fruits of everything, right? Interesting. We got a 7 and 8 thing there in verse 30. So, firstling of a lamb or an oxen or whatever, You let it be 7 days with its dam, that's its mother, its dame, on the 8th day. Then 8th day, or after, like as soon as possible after the 8th day. That's what it means by not delaying there. Okay, and that basically ends chapter 22.